pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This October 22nd school board meeting is called to order. Molly, thank you so much for leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. You did a wonderful job.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Yes.
So, Molly, I have a question for you. What is your favorite thing in school? You can stand it in where we can hear your answer. What's your favorite thing in school?
My favorite school, my favorite school is reading, writing, and learning how to write my name in cursive.
Ooh, very good.
Very good.
That's wonderful.
Awesome.
And I understand you're doing something very special after this meeting.
I'm going to go to Sonny's and get some barbecue ribs.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Ms. Cunningham?
Mr. Chairman, I think we should adjourn the meeting and go join her.
Yeah, I wish.
Yeah.
I wish it was like 4 in the morning so I can get McDonald's.
Well, Molly, thank you so much. You did a wonderful job.
Great job.
You're welcome.
Thank you. You did great.
So this time I would, let's see, do we have any revisions to the agenda? Mr. Hill?
Yes, sir. We have item C4, recognition, 13 Kathleen High teachers completion of master's degree, item withdrawn. Item C10, September 17th, 2019, school board meeting, item revised. Item C11, September 17, 2019, work session minutes, item revised. Item C15, 2020 legislative platform, item moved to regular. Item C16, policy updates, technical revision only, item moved to regular. Item C17, board member travel, item revised. Item C68, recommendations for temporary duty, assignment, item revised. Item R76, appointees-attendance boundaries, item revised. Item 85, 2019-2020 uniform assessment calendar, AA&E, item added. Mr. Chairman, this concludes our revisions for this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to accept the October 22nd, 2019 school board meeting agenda as revised.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? So the motion on the floor is approval of the October 22nd, 2019 school board meeting agenda as revised. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Hill, we have some special recognitions.
We do. Very excited tonight. I would like to ask school board member Lori Cunningham to please step to the front for our special recognitions. At this time, I would like to ask Sarah Fortney to please read the proclamation for Red Ribbon Month. Angie Ellison, Executive Director for Interact Alliance, will be accepting the proclamation.
Whereas substance abuse is the most common risk factor impacting youth and society, and the prevention education programs offered by Interact Alliance have proven to be effective tools in reducing risk factors and strengthening productive factors, with recent research showing that 84% of Polk County students in 6th through 12th grades choose not to drink alcohol. Thank you. And whereas Interact Alliance has been providing prevention education to youth and adults in Polk, Hardee, and Highlands County communities since 1985, working diligently to reduce the abuse and underage use of alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs through community awareness and involvement, prevention education, economic support, and leadership development. And whereas Interact Alliance serves as the fiscal agent for the Stand Up Polk adult-based and unpacked youth-based coalitions for drug-free polk, and works in collaboration with the county and local law enforcement to host the annual Own the Upside Prevention Summit medication take-back events and establish permanent prescription depositories to safely and properly dispose of unused medications. And whereas the 34th annual Red Ribbon campaign is highlighted by the Red Ribbon 5K, 15K, 5K, and Popular Kids Fun Run, presented by Interact Alliance and title sponsor Publix Supermarkets Incorporated, on Saturday, November 9th, 2019, creating a community event where adults compete in the 15K or 5K and elementary and middle school students participate in the Kids Fun Run around picturesque Lake Mirror and Lakeland's beautiful downtown and lake-to-lake area to support prevention education, anti-bullying, and discourage risky behaviors. Now, therefore, may it be resolved that the School Board of Polk County do hereby proclaim the month of October as National Red Ribbon Month. Every citizen is encouraged to wear a red ribbon to symbolize our commitment to healthy and safe environment for each student, for each citizen, and participate in events during the month of October and throughout the year that support a positive, healthy lifestyle.
Thank you.
It is my honor and privilege to present this proclamation to you today for all your hard work and efforts on behalf of our students, our parents, and our community. Thank you so much, Dale.
If our board members, staff, and students could stand, they are some representatives of all of the hundreds and hundreds of community leaders, both youth and adult, who work on drug prevention, and we really appreciate that Jack and Aiden are here this evening from Bartow IB and Victory. We have 2 students from every high school in a leadership program where they learn about their community first, and then they work on their cultural community problems together once they've gone through that program. So these 2 gentlemen are one of 40 that are in that program right now. So thank you so much for having us. We couldn't do it without the support of the school system, and especially the folks with Student Services and Mark Wilcox Center are just amazing partners. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. The kickoff was wonderful last year.
Next, I would like to ask Susan Copeland, Executive Director of the Polk Education Foundation, to come forward for recognition of Duke Energy.
Good evening, everyone. So tonight I am here to recognize Duke Energy, and on behalf of Duke Energy, I have with me Jerry Miller. He's their Government and Community Relations Manager, a friend to education, as is Duke Energy. For many, many years, they have sponsored grant opportunities in our county that the Polk Education Foundation facilitates. So this year, Duke Energy grants were to focus on engineering, energy education, or environmental education, benefiting 4th through 12th graders. This was a new focus for Duke. They generously donated $50,000 to make grants possible to the schools on the east side of our county. To date, or actually since 2006, so to date since then, that gift this year brings their total donated to $595,000. They believe in the power of education. So thanks to their gift this year, 12 schools received grants in amounts ranging from $1,500 to $6,000 to enhance instruction in engineering, energy, or environmental education. A few of those projects included an engineering program, an engineering green rover, which I personally would love to see, and then using drones in agriculture. As part of their grant funding, the schools were also able to participate in professional development. This was a new element related to the focus area that they applied for. So 10 teachers have already participated in an electrical engineering opportunity we gave them with the Orlando Science Center. They came to Lake Wales, and they all received the implementation kit around those lessons. An additional 10 more teachers will be having an opportunity around environmental engineering, and they will also receive those kits in December. So Duke's corporate office has strict reporting requirements. A lot of our funders do. But I'll tell you why we appreciate Duke so much. Not only for their funds, but for their belief in the importance of giving money that drives student achievement. We all believe that. And they really want to focus on outcomes and students improving their learning. So again, we thank Duke Energy. And Jerry has been instrumental for years in getting that funding for us. He and his team help review the grants. They go into the schools and visit to see implementations, and there just couldn't be a better partner. So I'll give you Jerry Miller to say a few words.
Thanks, Susan. Chairman Wilson, school board members, it's always a pleasure to come once a year, and I hope we get to do it for years and years. But the partnership that we have with the school board and the Polk Education Foundation, it just goes back for many, many years. I've been on the board since, I think, 2001. Now there's talk about term limits, which I think is probably a good thing. But Susan did mention a shift in focus. And in fact, we talked about drones a little bit, and from drones to butterflies. And tomorrow, Nancy Dodd in my office will be at Spook Hill Elementary in Lake Wales, releasing butterflies so the kids can understand more about pollinators, and working with Bach Tower Gardens and their rare plant and species program to better understand pollinators. We have a lot of power lines, and we mow those transmission line easements, and it's a great place for these flowers and pollinators. So we're doing a lot of work there, but just thank you for what you do for our children. Had 4 boys that went through this system and are all doing very, very well. And just, again, it's a pleasure to serve on the board. Susan and her team, you know this, but they do an outstanding job, and it makes donors like myself and many, many others, our job so much easier. And she talks about strict reporting. Are you kidding me? She's the strictest of all. I mean, I'm reading grants, and I said yes to this, stamp it. She's like, no, we're not doing that. So anyway, they need to change things. But it's always a pleasure to come, and I'm honored to be able to represent Duke and what we do with our partnership. Thanks.
Thank you.
And Mr. Hill, if I could offer a comment, I just want to thank Jerry Miller for all you do for our community all the time, and in particular for our school district. You've been there for so many years now, supporting our community, and we appreciate you so much. And I know when they talk about term limits, you're the last person they want a term limit off of.
Yeah.
So thank you so very much.
Yeah. Thanks, Lynn.
Let's get a picture. Oh, you're not going to get up here that
All right.
quick. Yeah,
I know how you love
yes,
Good.
only if you are.
Yeah, yes,
All right,
yes, yes.
we'll do it together. Okay. Yeah, it's a rose between the thorns.
You made me glasses fall. I couldn't even say that. Okay, that's funny.
Thank you. Now we'd like to ask Steve Cochran, Senior Director of Workforce Education, to come forward to recognize the Coordinator of the Year for the Farm Workers Program.
This year, Nyla Soto has won the Coordinator of the Year for the Farm Workers Program. You maybe remember seeing her last year at this point. She had also won the Coordinator of the Year. This is actually the 5th year that she has won Coordinator of the Year consecutively. And there are 12 other coordinators in the state of Florida. I think it is a testimony to the great work that she's doing with our farm workers. It's important work, and it's work that changes people's lives. And we are fortunate and very proud to have her working for us here in Polk County. Ms. Soto?
I want to thank the board members, and especially Steve, because he's always supported our program, even from before he became working here at the county office. But our program is designed to assist our farm workers better their way of life through education and employment. And our ultimate goal, we serve as farm workers in our county. We serve as legal farm workers, citizens, resident aliens, and employment authorized. We put them through training. I want to thank the vocational schools in our county because they prepare our students to better their way of life through training and also employment. These students are employed. We have 51 students in the county attending vocational training. We have over 13 students at Polk State College attending school there. Our students are hardworking students that all they need is an opportunity to prove themselves. As a former farm worker myself, my goal was to be able to get out of farm work so my kids didn't have to do that type of work. And sometimes all we need is an opportunity to prove ourselves. And our students have done that in our county. I want to introduce Isabel Camacho Leon, and she is my right hand in the office, and she is the recruiter and the employment specialist in my, get up, girl. You deserve this as much as I do. This young lady right here, she's expecting a baby. She goes out there and she recruits our farm workers. And she goes out there in the heat. She goes to the schools. She drives the whole entire county. And not only that, but she finds them jobs. So let's give her. She is the one that makes it happen in our office. Today we were doing follow-ups. I'm sorry, I'm going to take a few minutes. But today we were doing follow-ups. The state requires for us to do follow-ups on our participants for a whole year. First, second, and third, and fourth quarter follow-up. And I was running the wages on these students. A lot of our students are making $23 an hour, $17 an hour, and a lot more. And that's because of the hard work that our schools do to train our students to make them employable. Not only are they being employed, they're staying in Polk County. They're good citizens of our county, and I want to thank each and every one that touches the life of farm workers because they are a very important population in our community.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Soto.
Come on, you're not going to get out of this.
Thank you again.
There you go.
This time I would like to ask Sarah Beth Reynolds to please read the Hispanic Heritage Month proclamation. Diversity Director Chandra Hall will come forward to recognize staff who will accept the proclamation.
Whereas the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States Congress has authorized the designation of National Hispanic Heritage Month, and whereas Polk County Public Schools embraces diversity and promotes cultural awareness within our organization for all students as well as staff, and whereas Polk County Public Schools recognizes that diversity and inclusion is one of our biggest assets as a school district that serves more than 105,000 students, and whereas the School Board of Polk County currently has 36.15% students and 18.65% employees of Hispanic descent, and whereas Polk County Public Schools serves more than 1,700 migrant students and their families through educational supports as well as other areas, and whereas Polk County Public Schools recognizes the Hispanic culture as an attribute and acknowledges that the many contributions made to our schools, community, and our country by Hispanic stakeholders, whereas the School Board of Polk County also recognizes the businesses and economic development of the Hispanic community as a link to the educational advancement of our Hispanic students. Now therefore, be it resolved, the School Board of Polk County hereby proclaim September 15th through October 15th, 2019 as National Hispanic Heritage Month.
Thank you so much. We appreciate all that you do.
Thank you so much. All righty. Thank you to the board, Mr. Deputy Superintendent, Mr. Hill. Thank you for this opportunity. I promise I won't be long. I heard we have a packed agenda. But it's very important for me to state that as a part of my role, I do have the responsibility for promoting cultural awareness and diversity. So at this point, I do want to make sure that I recognize our Hispanic Heritage Month by recognizing our migrant staff in their department. While our migrant student population is not only comprised of Hispanic descent, we do have other students that are in this population, but I did want to point out that we have some great things going on in our migrant department, and we are producing some college and career-ready students. Ms. Higgins, who does such a great job over in the Mulberry area, is going to help me discuss some of those points for you in relation to our students. And when she's done, I want to point out or highlight a few staff members. Ms. Higgins? And she promised me she won't be long.
Yes, I wasn't given very much time, but I do want to recognize some students who were recognized actually by the state of Florida this year. We had 4 students from Polk County that were designated as Migrant Scholars of the Year. Brenda Alvarez Lagunas was named the most exemplary migrant student in the state of Florida. Brenda is currently studying medicine at Stanford University. She also recently joined the Equestrian Club. She's probably going to watch this. I thought I'd add that. Also, she was named the valedictorian of the senior high school class at Mulberry Senior last year. Victor Gonzalez Cortez was also named the valedictorian of Summerlin Academy in the last school year. He was named the Hero of the Year for the state of Florida. It was a new designation based on what he did during Hurricane Irma and his service to the community. He was also the recipient last year of the National Migrant Scholarship and received that award last year at the National Migrant Conference in New Orleans, and he is currently studying computer science at Florida International University in Miami on scholarship. Also, we had 2 additional students. Daniela Guillermo is studying business at Michigan State University on scholarship, and she graduated last year from Summerlin Academy. And we also have Mario Pineda. He is on a full scholarship at Polk State College studying education, and he is also amazing. And all of the students were the first in their families to graduate from high school, so I thought that was very amazing. And we want to add this special recognition. Recently, we had a student named Jack Kent Cook Scholar, which is actually very prestigious. Only 66 or less students are chosen nationwide. He's an 8th grader at Union Academy. His name is Giovanni Mesa. And many of those students go on in the future to attend Ivy League schools. So that's pretty phenomenal. There's a lot of others, but no time.
Thank you so much, Ms. Higgins, for that. And at this time, I want to take a few moments to recognize some of our staff members who are working behind the scenes. Ms. Elsa Gonzalez, come on up, Ms. Elsa. Ms. Elsa is not only a staff member in our migrant office, she's also a product of the migrant education program. She works behind the scenes, making sure she connects our families with the schools and she's making sure that we are promoting education in our departments. Also, Miss Danny Higgins. What can I say about Danny? Danny does a lot as well, but she's on the ground, making sure, again, all of these great things are happening with the schools, collaborating with teachers and administrators, and both of them do such a great job, and I just wanted to take a moment to recognize them today.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Did you have anything you want to share? Yes. She does.
I told Brenda that I wasn't going to speak, and she said, "You're given the opportunity to speak on the behalf of migrant students, and you're not going to do it." So I just want to say that I'm very grateful for the recognition of the hard work of the migrant students and their families. I have been very fortunate to work with this population of the children of migrant farm workers over the past 15 years in Mulberry. These students have what it takes to succeed in school, but sometimes they need extra help along the way. The majority of my students will be the first in their families to graduate from high school. That alone offers a glimpse of the challenges that they will face. But add into that traveling to harvest crops, sometimes learning a second language, often living in poverty, and also helping with financial obligations in their own homes. I am thankful to work for a district that puts students first, in a community in Mulberry that is very welcoming. We have amazing administrators who make things happen. I've made many visits to students' homes with principals. I've even watched Steve Cochran, who was at the time the principal of Summerlin, read Dr. Seuss to children in a migrant camp in July. He did wear a suit that day, and I don't think he would do that again. And enrolling students most recently with Sue Becerra at Kingsford Elementary until 6 p.m. because parents couldn't come during the normal workday. Putting students first sometimes means thinking outside the box. I am so grateful for the staff of our schools. In short, our programs are valuable to students who have what it takes, but who need extra support to get to their goals, and often to exceed them. My favorite quote is, "Opportunity without support is a broken promise." Thank you for supporting our programs and our children to not only see what is possible, but to have the resources and support available to reach that success.
Thank you so much, Ms. Higgins. And as you can see, some great things are going on in our marketing department. I want to thank our schools for all that they've done this month in recognition for Hispanic Heritage Month. Social media has displayed that very well, so thank you for that. And also, I wanted to take a moment to plug this weekend. There's the Hispanic Heritage Festival in Lakeland from 9 to 11 p.m. No, I'm saying that backwards. It's from 11 to 9 p.m. I will be there, and our Office of Recruiting will also be there actively recruiting teachers. They are doing a great job recognizing that our population, our Hispanic population, is growing, and they are also working extra hard to bring some Hispanic teachers into the fold. We have hired, I think, 38 teachers since this summer as a part of their efforts for recruiting. So we are excited about that. And we will be there, so stop by and see us this weekend. And as I'm closing, one of our local Hispanic businesses donated some pastries for our board members. El Patron here in Bartow, El Patron Supermarket. I did reach out to them, and we thank them for sharing their pastries with you. I wish that I had enough to give the whole audience like the talk shows, but I just don't. So don't go looking under your chairs, but you can. But you can enjoy some pastries too. Please be sure to visit them. They do a lot in our community, so we appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. And does that mean I have to share this with the other board members?
I made sure I asked ahead. I have enough for everybody. I do.
Thank you. Great job. Thank y'all so much. Okay. And at this time, I'd like to ask Kay Fields to please read the Disability Awareness Month proclamation. Dr. Kimberly Steinke, Assistant Superintendent of Learning Support, will recognize staff accepting the proclamation.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Proclamation, School Board of Polk County, Bartow, Florida. Whereas this is the 29th year passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990 that was founded on 4 principles: inclusion, full participation, economic self-sufficiency, and equality of opportunity for all people with disabilities, and aims for equality of all. And whereas students with disabilities are of all racial, ethnic, educational, social, and economic backgrounds and are all valued members in Polk County schools. And whereas the Polk County School Board also encourages cooperation between the school system, post-secondary institutions, and the community at large to promote better treatment and fair hiring practices for people with disabilities. And whereas during the 2019-20 school year, there are more than 14,000 students with disabilities enrolled in the K-12 system, which includes post-secondary schools. And whereas early intervention education and employment are vital to enabling students with disabilities to enjoy the rights of citizenship. And whereas the Polk County Schools' exceptional student education department value what is important to students with disabilities and their families who are striving for everyday lives, no different than other students, and to become productive members of society. And whereas the Polk County Schools are committed to promoting the 4 principles of the American Disabilities Act to provide instruction in disability history, people with disabilities, and the disability rights movement through school curriculum, school assemblies, and other school activities. And now, therefore, be it resolved by the School Board of Polk County, we proudly proclaim October as National Disability Employment Awareness Month. Hey, hey.
Thank you, Ms. Fields. It's a busy month in October. Before I start about disability history awareness, I want to put a plug in for Red Ribbon because that also falls under the Learning Support Division. And if anybody wants to run the 5K with our team, let Dr. Steinke know and we'll get you hooked up because we're supporting that as well. You know, we've done a lot of work with our students with disabilities across the district over the last several years, and School Board, you've heard a lot of information about how we're providing more support, and our graduation rates are increasing. We have more transition programs for our students. We are hiring our own students. Our project search has been very successful. We've got more students participating in Special Olympics. Our inclusion rates are increasing. We've just a lot of things that are going on with our students with disabilities and a lot of success that we've been able to share. Our PR department has been wonderful partners with us in social media and getting information out and videos and all those kinds of things, especially this month as we have this recognition. But really what I wanted to do tonight is focus on 4 specific groups of people that really make the work happen and really are the backbone of what happens for our students with disabilities. Beyond school board and superintendent and the support that we get there. You know, in our division, we have a ton of therapists, we have behavior specialists, we have, you know, all kinds of counselors and mental health people and academic supports and people that I couldn't even bring everybody in here tonight because there definitely wouldn't be enough room in the building for all the people that support. But these 4 specific groups I want to recognize. And first is our ESC director, Diane Taylor. You guys stand up when it's time. Diane's been in Polk County Schools for 31 years and has been the ESC director for 10 years, and she's my right hand, bounce off everything when it comes to ESC items. So she's a great leader, and she leads a team of ESC senior managers: Stephanie Gardner, Poinsettia Tillman, Shelley Magruder, Gregory Kent, Deirdre Jo Sullivan, Tiffany Kitchens, Franda Satchel Carter, and Samelia Davis. And let me tell you, a lot of the work that this team does and the things that go through our desks are not always the fun things. We put in a lot of hours, and I know they do, a lot of late night, you know, messages and emails and things, and a lot of the stress levels that comes across as things that we're dealing with, they are the front line on those things, and they don't get thanked enough. And I want to take an opportunity to thank my team because they're amazing. So thank you guys. Okay, you can sit down. The next group are our principals and our assistant principals for our 3 ESC separate day schools, center schools, and Roosevelt Academy. You know, they are so creative, and I don't get enough time to get into their schools as much as I want to, but I know when I do, it's fun and it's always good stuff. You know, Molly is a great example of the students that we serve and the great work that they do, and so I'm excited to be able to recognize them tonight. At Gene Dell, we have April Sumner as principal and Jamie Yost as assistant principal. At Doris Sanders, Polly Bruner is our principal and Kathleen Driver is our AP. At Karen Siegel Academy, Maggie Reynolds is our principal and Ruby Kaufman is our assistant principal. And at Roosevelt Academy, we have Dr. Deborah Kendall and John Dooley. Amazing leaders and putting the work in every day with our kiddos, and thank you. The next group, this is a group that we have really been working hard to build a bridge with and some communication and really working hard to work with our parents. And I brought today and asked our ESC Advisory Committee officers to come and represent the team. So I'm going to ask Sarah Frederick, our chairperson, who has her daughter Nevaeh with her here tonight. Nevaeh is a student at Roosevelt Academy. Tasha Littles is our co-chair. And her son Judah is at Southwest Middle School. And Ashley Gregory is here tonight, and her child is sick, so she thankfully didn't bring him with us. But Ashley's our secretary, and so these group of parents have been on the front lines as far as reaching out to our families. I'm getting to them. Reaching out to our families and putting our information out about our meetings and really bridging that piece and helping us collaborate and understand what it is parents are hearing and understanding or misunderstanding and how we can bridge that gap with our services and the information and that work that we do. So I appreciate them and the work and the collaboration especially in what we're doing. So thank you for being here. And then lastly, literally in the classroom every single day working with our kiddos, I asked our parents to bring also a teacher or a para or somebody with them. So here tonight, representing our teachers and our paras, I'm proud to introduce Brandy Gogol, who's a teacher at Chain of Lakes. Yetta Saunders, who's a paraprofessional for Nevaeh. Heidi Kovac, who's a teacher at Medulla. And Diana Iman is one of our LEA facilitators at Southwest Middle School. So thank you guys for your work every day with our kiddos. We know that whole saying, it takes a village. It takes everybody collaborating and working together, and I'm just so proud of the work that we're being able to do. We got a lot more work to do, but we're on that projection going positive. Lastly, school board members, everybody received one of our programs for this weekend. We will be having, as the culmination of our month, is our Polk Symposium on Special Education. I'm excited because it's always a great day of sessions for families, for teachers. We have a ton of vendors that come, free food for anybody that comes. There's stuff for kids. It's just a sweet world of ESC is the theme this week. And I'm excited because I haven't been able to attend all the planning meetings. I think I went to one, like the first one. And they did the rest, and they are an amazing team, and it's going to be a great Saturday. So anybody that's available to come, it's at Lake Region High School, starting at 10 a.m. till 3 p.m. on this Saturday, October 26th. Thank you.
Does anybody else want to come up and speak, since so many of you are here? Okay, if not, come on up, please do. We'd love for you to have the opportunity to say a few words.
I just want to say on behalf of the ESC Advisory, thank you to our ESC department. Thank you to our school board. The amazing parents who never give up fighting for their children in the ESC world. Our teachers, our paras, and the other varying abilities in this room, and the teachers who are in the trenches every day fighting for our children. They contribute to our schools, and we're just so grateful for their help and thankful for their passion. That's it. Tasha?
Good evening. We have been privileged to be guided by so many who did the work before us in parents and advocacy and continue to support our efforts even now. And we just want to thank, on the behalf of the advisory, thank you to all who have been witnesses to all of our stories and who have joined us in those stories. As we matriculate through the educational process, I'm reminded of the beginning and what we have to look forward with this team. And being a part of the ESC world is like having the family that you kind of never wanted, yet having the support that you never knew you needed. And I want to thank everyone that has supported all of the students, especially students in ESC, to get where they're at today. And thank you to my board member, who is awesome. Thank you.
Now we'd like some pictures, so you get, who would like to come up for a picture? Come on up. She mentioned a lot of different people, so if you're here, we'd love to have you for a group photo.
And you get to leave right after, so.
Oh, yeah.
You're fine. You ready? Mr. Wilson, this concludes our special recognitions for today.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Unfortunately, Superintendent Byrd wasn't able to join us this evening, so I just want to thank Deputy Superintendent John Hill for sitting in. Thank you, Mr. Hill. At this time, I would invite anyone who would like to address any item on the agenda. So if you'd like to come forth at this time and address any item on the agenda, please do so. Okay, so we have 3 sets of minutes. I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the September 17th, 2019 school board meeting.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? The motion on the floor is approval of the minutes of the September 17, 2019 school board meeting. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is approval of the minutes of the September 17, 2019 work session. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? So the motion on the floor is approval of the minutes of the September 17th, 2019 work session. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And the last set of minutes are the minutes of the September 24th, 2019 special school board meeting. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? So the motion on the floor is approval of the minutes of the September 24th, 2019 special school board meeting. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Do we have,
Second.
we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? So the motion on the floor is approval of the consent agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And at this time, Mr. Hill, we have some new administrators.
We do. Superintendent Jacqueline Byrd is pleased to recommend the appointment of Stephen Cochran as Senior Director at Career, Technical, Adult, and Multiple Pathways Education. Mr. Cochran has been serving as the Acting Senior Director at Career Technical since September 2018. He previously served as the principal at Summerlin Academy. He attended the University of Florida and earned a bachelor's degree in history. He went on to earn his master's in special education from the University of South Florida and is currently working on his education specialist degree in leadership. Mr. Cochran has a Florida Educator certification in Varying Exceptionalities K-12, History 612, Marketing 612, Principal, Local Director of Career and Technical Education, and Education Leadership, all levels. Congratulations, Steve.
Thank you very much. I would just like to, first off, thank the board and the superintendent and the deputy superintendent for your faith and confidence in me and allowing me to serve in this position. I want to briefly thank the supervisors who I worked for who helped me and mentored me along the way. Some of these people, most of these people are retired. One of them is unfortunately deceased, but I did want to mention their names. Joel Whidden, Dennis Higgins, whose daughter was here tonight. He'd be very proud of her. Bruce Tonjes, Lisa Harden, Tammy Dawson, and Dr. Eggs. They've all helped me along the way, and I wouldn't be here without their support. And most importantly, I want to thank my wife, who's here tonight. And I know I wouldn't be standing here without her. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Superintendent Jacqueline Byrd is pleased to recommend the appointment of Amber Wilson as Assistant Principal at Eastside Elementary School. Amber has been serving as the Reading Department Chair at Haines City High School since August 2017. She previously served as a virtual instructor, English 2 Honors, in Orange County Public Schools. She attended the University of West Florida, earning her Bachelor's in Science, Exercise Science, and her Master's of Education in Education Leadership. Amber, congratulations. Welcome aboard.
Thank you for the opportunity. I just want to say thank you for everyone in Polk County. I've had some amazing opportunities to grow and learn, and I am excited to continue my journey. So thank you.
Superintendent Jacqueline Byrd is pleased to recommend the appointment of Laura Hartman as Assistant Principal at Polk Virtual School. Ms. Hartman has been serving as the Teacher Resource Specialist at Polk Virtual School, Multiple Pathways, since August 2017. She attended Warner Southern University, earning her Bachelor's in Arts and Organizational Management, her Master of Education in Curriculum and Instruction at American Continental, Chicago, Illinois, and her Education Specialist degree in Educational Leadership from National Louis University. Congratulations, Laura.
Thank you, Deputy Hill. I just want to begin by saying my family has a long history with the Polk County Public Schools. My dad graduated from Lakeland Senior. Myself and my brothers also graduated from Lakeland Senior. I had a daughter that graduated from Harrison, a son that graduated from Gauze Academy, and another daughter that graduated from Gauze Academy. I came into teaching because I found myself as a single mom with 3 kids here in Polk County, and I needed their schedule. What I discovered along the way is I have a passion for those under-resourced, underprivileged children, and I was able to instill that in my children. I have a daughter who is now a teacher. I have a son that's a long-distance truck driver. He was never college-bound, but you know what? He found his niche, and he makes more money than I do. And then I have another daughter that went into the private sector, and she's working for a local family-run community business here in Polk County. And it's all because of the teachers and the administration and the school board members that guided them and guided me and guided my parents. And I appreciate the opportunity to give back. I can't say thank you enough to the parents that entrust their children and allow me to serve them every single day. Mr. Cochran, been a great mentor. And now I've got Mr. Williams, Darren Williams, who is my boss. So I've got my boss and my boss's boss sitting here, and I couldn't be happier. So thank you.
Congratulations. That concludes our announcements. Mr. Wilson?
Thank you, Mr. Hill. So with that, I'm sorry.
Picture. A photo.
Oh, a picture of the new administrators.
Yep, pictures, new administrators.
Thank you. I thought you.
Thanks for catching that. We
Sorry,
appreciate
I
it.
wasn't
Nope.
enunciating very well.
Well, I'm thinking, I get my picture.
You thought it was your turn, huh? He's like, okay, I'm ready.
Sort of got it out.
Actually, my phone was, I get my picture.
Who was it?
Okay, are we ready to move forward? The next item, we'll now move to our regular agenda, and the next item on the agenda is item C16. This was an item that was moved from the consent agenda to the regular agenda? Right, okay. And this is approval of policy update number 5410. And again, this was an item moved from the consent agenda to the regular agenda. So what's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, so the motion on the floor is approval of policy update number 5410. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I meant to say aye. I was just slow.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item also was moved from the consent agenda. This is item C15 to the regular agenda, and this is approval of the 2020 legislative platform. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Mr. Townsend?
All right. We talked about this quite a bit in the agenda study. We're going to, I guess, revisit this real quickly. Under it's this document here. It's our legislative priorities. Under the targeted priorities, number 2, I am proposing to amend that. What's the best form to say amend the motion or amend the document? How do I?
Once there is, this item is on the agenda.
Correct.
As is. You can make a motion to amend the item. If it draws a second, then as amended, the item will be voted upon. If it does not draw a second, then there will be there may be a motion to approve the item as it stands.
I move to amend the item.
With what?
Do I say what?
Yeah.
Yes, just.
Okay, okay, so I don't have to have permission to amend. Okay, all right, sorry, all right. I move to amend number 2 under PCPS targeted priorities to read prohibit use of VAM by FDOE to dictate teacher placement decisions, and if that is not granted, to require state calculated VAM, and then the rest of it would stay as it is.
Okay, so Mr. Townsend's requested an amendment to the motion. Is there a second? So that motion fails. The motion on the floor then, with a second, is approve the superintendent's recommendation of the 2020 legislative platform as presented. Any further discussion? Mr. Townsend?
I'm not going to vote for this. One of the things we've talked the most about is the abuse of VAM. As for those of you who don't know, VAM is an absurd equation that's used to move teachers around. Even all advocates for it, it's a bad idea to begin with, but even the advocates for it reject the way the state of Florida uses it. It's arbitrary. It disrupts schools, particularly those schools that can least afford to be disrupted. It most recently disrupted several of our schools this year. The way this reads currently, it says that we just want the state to provide the VAM calculation by a certain date. Last year, and the year before that, we were very clear with our legislators that we did not want VAM used in the way it's been used, which is to harm kids, to harm teachers. That has changed in this legislative cycle. I think that's a big mistake. It amounts to an endorsement of VAM. I'm not going to endorse something this arbitrary and frankly designed to create chaos. I think it's a mistake to not include it the way we have the last 2 years. I think it's a way for the legislature to make us complicit in their rules. When they impose this number, it's going to the folks who suffer by it aren't going to call Kelly Argel. They're not going to call Manny Diaz or Colleen Burton. They're going to call me, or they're going to call Ms. Miller, or they're going to call Sarah Beth Reynolds. And I want to be able to say I did everything I could to stop the use of this, to stop the abuse of our kids, to stop the abuse of our teachers with it. And I think it's a very big mistake to take that off of our priorities this year. So I will be voting no on all of them.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. Ms. Miller?
I just want to, for those that weren't in our work session, and mainly I'm talking to staff, so this is strictly for the record and people that view this on YouTube later. Yes, I think everyone has agreed that VAM is not something that helps students or helps our teachers, especially our teachers working with students of low socioeconomic areas or students with disabilities who are greatly affected by the scores they're given. It is an unfair thing that we've done. In the last 2 years, we have taken it as part of our legislative platform to have it removed or not used. Part of the reason this is happening tonight is because we were given the legislative platform a very late date. So from now on, we'll be discussing this at every work session. I would have liked more time to discuss our legislative platform and our priorities with session going back earlier this year due to next year's presidential election and moving everything up. It's really been a detriment to get things very late. I hope as a board we move forward with having more time to speak on all issues, including our legislative priorities. What we're going with right now tonight is something that the legislative liaison feels is achievable. It can read that it looks like we are agreeing to VAM. Fortunately, I think most of us have voiced that we do not. I respect Mr. Townsend in stating that in his opinion and his position, but I am supporting this tonight based on that we have to move forward and we were given minimal time to do that.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Ms. Fortney?
Oh, again, if you look at the work session, there is nobody in this room that hates VAM scam more than Sarah Fortney. But I also know that I need to eat an elephant bite by bite. And the other bites earlier have not worked because we still have VAM scam and we still get punished by it. Our kids get punished. Our teachers get punished. So I'm looking to at least alleviate the punishment. If we can get this pushed through, maybe we don't have teachers setting up their classrooms, meeting kids and families on orientation, and then showing up on a Monday morning having to move their classrooms due to the state DOE punishing us, and that's why I call it VAM scam.
Thank you, Ms. Fortney. Ms. Fields?
When we were in work session this morning, one of the things that I wanted more information on to share with all of the board members is how there has been a change in the evaluation piece where that it's not BAM only, but it's also the SAOs, the Student Academic Objectives Plan, that teachers can choose from. And from my understanding, there are a lot of teachers that have chosen to do that. And I think as we have our discussions and every board member is to submit 2 issues that they would like to have more information on, that is going to be one of my issues. The BAM and the SAO, Student Academic Objectives, getting more information on that and how that's impacted and the difference that it's made since we submitted our legislative platform this time last year. I agree with Ms. Fortney that this is not ideal, but as she said, you take one bite at a time. And right now, we're trying to make sure that we have more days to allow teachers to have to move out of respect for them. So I will be supporting this today with the understanding that we are going to go back and we will continue to work to improve what we have before us.
Thank you, Ms. Fields. Mr. Townsend, did you have additional comments?
Yeah, one of the advantages of having this discussion like this right now is that we just got a whole bunch of people on the record talking about how bad VAM is. So, there are several priorities on this list that I'm very, very on the record in strong support of, including making all the silly bonus programs into salaries for our folks. I think the difference between that's a position that can be stated and repeated on its own merits clearly. The problem with the way we phrase this with VAM is that it creates a tacit endorsement in its phrasing, and that's what I'm reluctant to sign on to. I am happy, to hear what's been repeated here this evening, and I think we certainly will revisit it moving ahead. But I do think there was a lot of advantage in talking this out in a way that the public can see it. So there's a whole bunch of tape now of all of us saying what a problem VAM is. I just wish we would. I don't see what the harm in simply keeping that position in place is. And I would disagree. I think in the last couple of years, there's been reduction in the way VAM is mandated. I dressed up for Halloween last year as a vampire because I was an undead bloodsucker, and the reason that was VAM is still used somewhat. It's used to move our teachers around in turnaround schools. It's used somewhat bonus programs, but it's not a comprehensive use the way it was two years ago. And one of the reasons for that is a lot of pressure from this board and others, and a lot of clarity about how harmful it is. And so I think it's important to be clear. This is not the end of the world. They're not going to decide yes or no on this based on what we do here. But I think stating it clearly, if I can't get this on paper, having everybody say it out loud matters too. So thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. Ms. Fortney?
I would encourage everybody to look at these, all of these legislative priorities because I think we did do pretty good work dividing it into statewide and then targeted priorities last work session, because it's not just us, it's every district has about the same. That's why we decided statewide priorities, because it is a statewide problem. But I definitely want to draw attention to number 3 on the targeted priorities. We kind of lost track of that today, and I couldn't fully fund the cost of a mental health counselor at each school in the district. That is my number 1 priority right there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fortney. We did have a very substantive discussion about this matter during the work session today, and I also agree that the VAM process that we use is not beneficial to moving education forward in our state, and I think it's unfortunate. I think at some point in time, our legislators are going to have to figure that out. But I think it's important for us to have a continuing dialogue. I think we will, and to craft something that is achievable, but also something that will be clear and concise. So we did have a very substantive discussion, and I look forward to those continued discussions. I know we all do. So the motion on the floor is approval of the superintendent's 2020 legislative platform as presented. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is approval of Resolution 2019-2020-10. This is a revenue anticipation note, a resolution of the School Board of Polk County, Florida, authorizing the issuance of a note not to exceed $6 million in order to finance the newly acquired bus radio system. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Mr. Townsend?
Just again, this is to pay for the really substantial and helpful bus upgrade system we've done. We have much better communications now on the buses. Seems like the implementation has gone real well. We got Ms. Williams in the audience. Thank you for your persistence. Really just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. Any further discussion? And we did discuss this also at great length, and we have every expectation that we will receive some benefit from our county government, and so that it may, at the final analysis, it may cost us significantly less than $6 million. So just wanted to mention that so our folks at home know that the price, whatever the price is, we need to pay it, but it could be less than that. That's important to point out as well. So we have a motion on the floor, and this is a motion to approve Resolution 2019-2020-10, Revenue Anticipation Note to finance our newly acquired bus radio system. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I did skip item R71, so we'll go back to that. And this is approval of the nominees to the Attendance Boundary Committee. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second.
Mr. Wilson, were you going to read the names?
Yes, I'll read them into the record. Thank you. Unless you'd like to.
No, sir. No, that's your job.
So the individuals as nominated included Tom Phillips, nominated by Billy Townsend, Travis L. Keys, nominated by Lori Cunningham, Trish Pfeiffer, nominated by Sarah Fortney, Don Brown, nominated by Kay Fields, and Mike Hickman, nominated by Lisa Miller. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? So the motion on the floor is approval of the nominees to the Attendance Boundary Committee. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is item R73, and this is approval of the agreement between the School Board of Polk County, Florida, and the Learning Resource Center of Polk County, Inc. for $35,000. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Motion on the floor is approval of the agreement between the School Board of Polk County, Florida, and the Learning Resource Center of Polk County, Inc. for $35,000. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is R74, and this is approval of the agreement between the School Board of Seminole County, Florida, on behalf of the East Coast Technical Assistance Center, ECTAC, and the School Board of Polk County, Florida. The agreement is for $18,000. The dates are from full execution until June 30th, 2020. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? So the motion on the floor is approval of the agreement between the School Board of Seminole County and the Polk County School Board in the amount of $18,000. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is item R75, and this is approval to name the property at 8 West Palmetto Street in Davenport, Florida, the Davenport Elementary School. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Cunningham?
Just wanted to let everybody know that the process we used, we formed a nominating committee group and made up of business and community leaders and our staff. And the committee met on 2 occasions, and after which the committee felt that unanimously that the name should be Davenport Elementary. And Ms. Townley kind of led our group, if you will. And then from there, a group of us went and presented it to the Davenport City Commission and asked for their blessing so that we could move forward in recommending it to our superintendent, which is then coming before us tonight. So many thanks to Kelly Callahan. I think he was our chair of the committee, and all the different committee members. And I know Ms. Principal Brown is very excited to finally get the school named and the community moving forward. So thank everyone in advance and all those that worked diligently to bring this forward to you tonight. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. Any further comments? Any further discussion? So the motion on the floor is to approve the naming of the property at 8 West Palmetto Street in Davenport, Florida, Davenport Elementary School. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is R76, and this is approval of the recommended appointees to serve on the Attendance Boundary Committee provided by Ms. Usher. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? The motion on the floor is to approve the recommended appointees as recorded to serve on the Attendance Boundary Committee as provided by Ms. Usher. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is R77, and this is a motion for confirmation approval of Amendment Number 1 to Wharton Smith, Inc., Construction Group for a guaranteed maximum price of $44,333,884 for the 19 AAA, yet to be named, high school project per their proposal dated October 7, 2019. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? So again, yes, ma'am. Ms. Cunningham?
Just wanted to mention, Ms. Usher did a wonderful presentation this morning at our work session regarding the high school, and it's very exciting. We've had some different land issues up there, and it looks like we're going to be breaking ground here shortly within the next month or so, and should be starting in December. And staff is working very diligently to ensure that the school opens in August of 2021. I kind of felt like we may not be able to do that, but everybody's trying really hard, and it's really wonderful if we're able to even come close to that timeline. So I thank you ahead of time, and I know the community is going to be very excited to know that we're on schedule despite all of the setbacks that we may have had here in this fall quarter. So I just want to say thank you to all those who are continuously working so hard to keep this high school moving forward. So we look forward to the groundbreaking and then hopefully for construction to start before Christmas. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. Ms. Fortney?
Yeah, definitely want to give a shout out to Ms. Usher because all her presentations today were very clear, concise, and Mulberry High School, all our gyms. She's doing a lot of work over there, and just want you to know I appreciate it.
I also would like to take just a moment and commend Ms. Usher and her staff. You know, we knew once the half-cent sales tax passed, there would be a lot of work to do, and they really have dug in and done a wonderful job of moving forward with all of our projects. So thank you so very much for your leadership, and thank you to all of your team members as well for all their hard work. So the motion on the floor is confirmation and approval of amendment number 1 to Warden Smith, Inc. Construction Group for a guaranteed maximum price of $44,333,884 for the new 19 AAA High School for their proposal dated October 7, 2019. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is R78, and this is approval of the pre-construction services in the amount of $15,000 for the Eastside Elementary project to include a new cafeteria and 4 classroom remodels. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? So a motion on the floor is approval of the pre-construction services in the amount of $15,000 for the Eastside Elementary project to include a new cafeteria and 4 classroom remodels. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Oh, excuse me, there is a second piece to this. So since we voted on that one, we'll vote on this one separately. And this is approval upon review. I don't know how I'm going to do this, Mr. Bridges. This is kind of disconnected now.
So which one are you looking at, Mr.
So I'm
Chair?
looking at number R78. This was actually 2 parts. I don't know that we can vote on them independently. So we voted on the first part, which ends with including a new cafeteria and 4 classroom remodels. And then the second piece, this is approval for the superintendent and facility staff to approve upon review core construction, guaranteed maximum price proposal, which will be brought to us at a later date. Can I craft that somehow into a motion?
Ooh, for the superintendent.
It's one contract, it looks like, for $15,000.
Yeah.
This appears to be authorization to the superintendent
Correct.
and staff to approve later
Okay.
Yes.
core construction guaranteed maximum price proposal for the project.
So,
Correct, Angela Usher, Facilities and Operation. The motion is to allow staff to negotiate and work with core construction to get the guaranteed maximum price. But before we do that, we need a pre-construction amount, $15,000 to start the work. So that's why it's all put together. We will bring back the GMP to you.
okay.
Okay.
So is this,
Because I would
I
say,
think she explained that today in work session.
yeah, the guaranteed maximum price proposal will be a big one. So you're bringing that one back.
Right.
So this is all authority to negotiate, but not to approve the final maximum
and
price
is
contract.
that Horace Construction?
It's it's core,
Core Construction,
and
okay.
the minority partner is Horace.
Horace,
So
okay.
it's core Horace.
All right, so I'll craft this as best I can. This is approval for the superintendent and facility staff to approve upon review core construction, Horace Construction's guaranteed maximum price proposal for this project. However, this project will be brought back to the board at a later date for confirmation and future approval. So what's the pleasure of the board?
We're approving the
Move
15,000.
approval.
Well, we've already approved that.
Right, okay.
What we're approving is to allow them to move forward with, I'm assuming,
You're
negotiations
you're authorizing negotiations with the
Right.
contract to be brought back at a later
at a
date.
later date.
Move approval?
Second.
Discussion?
I just thought that was included in the first vote.
Right, I
So,
thought
Well-
so too.
And, I mean, to the extent that I'm not sure it's helpful to have a second one because it creates a whole other, like, thing, you know,
Okay.
I think what we did was we authorized them to open the negotiations along with paying pre-construction services.
And
And that's it.
the authority to negotiate.
Correct,
Are we
right.
clear about that?
Right.
Are you okay with that, Mr.?
Did we read the entire language into it?
No, we did not.
We did
I would
not.
suggest that you go ahead and do that. You have, what you did, you have approved the $15,000 pre-construction services fee. This motion will allow you to authorize negotiations.
Authorized
just did.
negotiations,
Right.
You just did.
With the
That's
clear
what you read.
understanding
That's what you read.
that once negotiations are complete, the new guaranteed maximum price proposal will be brought back to the board for approval.
Right. I mean,
That's what he said.
That's what he said the second time.
Yes, yes.
So all we're doing on the second motion, we have a motion and a second, is just approving them to negotiate further, and then they'll
Correct.
bring that back to us. Okay? All right, so we have, the motion on the floor is to allow the superintendent staff to negotiate. They'll come back to us at a later date for confirmation and approval. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And I apologize for the confusion. Thank you, Ms. Usher. The next item is R79, and this is approval of donation of a sidewalk easement along the front of Dixie Elementary to the city of Lakeland. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just to clarify, it's Dixieland. I think it's at Dixie by accident. It doesn't exist. Just
Dixie-
a Small thing. It's
Dixieland. Okay, thank you. So do we have any discussion? So the motion on the floor is approval of the donation of a sidewalk easement along the front of Dixieland Elementary to the city of Lakeland. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is item R80, and this is approval of the quitclaim deed to the city of Lakeland for a portion of Ariana Street in front of Dixieland Elementary. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? So the motion on the floor is approval of the quitclaim deed to the city of Lakeland for a portion of Ariana Street in front of Dixieland Elementary. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is R81, and this is approval of the construction of a new replacement elementary school on Bailey Road in Mulberry. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Fortney?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Usher. The city of Mulberry thanks you.
Kids, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fortney. Any further discussion? So the motion on the floor is approval of the construction of a new replacement elementary school on Bailey Road in Mulberry. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is C63. This was an item moved from the consent agenda onto the regular agenda as well. And this is approval of the replacement of the artificial turf at Bryant Stadium. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We have discussion. Mr. Townsend?
Yeah, some of you may remember a year and a half, 2 years ago, kind of lose track now. We
Two.
Is it two? Yeah. We voted to purchase Bryant Stadium from the city of Lakeland. That's where Lakeland High plays football and soccer and lacrosse, I think, too, but various other things, and band plays there. Lakeland High does not have an on-campus football stadium or soccer stadium or at the time we made the purchase, it was made very clear that the turf was on its last legs. This was really a de facto part of the purchase price. The turf that was put in place by the city prior to us buying this some 10 years ago, I guess, it has used up its usefulness, and there's some safety issues with it. This will replace it. It will extend the warranty out for 12 years. It'll be a better quality product. And I think moreover, I was the one who pulled this out of the consent because I think we need to sort of update what the moving ahead plan is for Bryant Stadium. It's in a weird sort of school/county purgatory, and there are some opportunities for us to use it to make money for the district to fund programs, and we just need to kind of update where we stand on it. So I'm gonna vote to approve this tonight, but we're gonna have a more in-depth discussion about where Bryant Stadium goes from here in the next couple of work sessions, I think. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. Any further discussion? So the motion on the floor is replacement of the artificial turf at Bryant Stadium. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is item R82, and this is approval of the revised job description, senior technician, labor relations. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Motion on the floor is approval of the revised job description, senior technician, labor relations. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is item R83, and this is approval of the revised job description, senior technician, employee relations. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Fortney?
Yeah, I still don't really understand all this, but it looks like a raise to me. And like just a couple folks get a raise and the rest of the folks don't. That's just what it looks like to me on paper. And I just wanted to say that. I brought it up in work session.
Thank you, Ms. Fortney. Any further discussion? So the motion on the floor is approval of the revised job description, senior technician, employee relations. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is item R84, and this is approval of new job description, senior director, discipline. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Mr. Townsend?
This position is very important. It's the point person. I mean, it's, I guess, occupied currently by Brett Butler. I don't know that there's going to be any change with that. It's right. This is the correct thing, right? I'm not misstating that, right? And it's really the point person for the behavior plan that we pushed for all last year. That's in being implemented now. It will probably rise and fall with the success of this person. So I just wanted to highlight this job is very, very important. A lot of pressure will come with this job, and anyway, that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. Any further discussion? Okay. Mr. Hill?
Oh, there it is. Oh, got it.
It's a red button.
Got the button, green button.
I think it's green.
All right,
it's
just a
green.
point of clarification. Mr. Butler is the director of discipline, so that senior director position is an open position. It's currently advertised.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, just a point of clarification because folks might
Right.
misunderstand.
Okay. So what you're saying is it's not grouped for someone. It will be applied where everything will go
It's
through
an open
this.
position and it's being advertised at this time. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. So the motion on the floor is approval of the new job description, Senior Director of Discipline. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is item R85. This was an item that was added to the agenda, and this is approval of the uniform assessment calendar for the 2019-2020 academic year. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Fortney?
Yeah, I printed a copy of this. It is 10 pages, basically 8 pages, I think, of why we are losing teachers, is this test and punish atmosphere. I just want to put that out on public record. Not that it's anybody's fault, but this is what they live with right here. And this is one of the main reasons we cannot keep our teachers.
Thank you, Ms. Fortney. Mr. Townsend?
Yeah, bear with me a second on this. I'm going to vote against this, and it's for the reasons Sarah mentioned, but it's beyond that. In the last couple of months, a couple of things have happened. One is a lawsuit. You know, the lawsuit that we filed over a very intrusive state bill in 2016 that we thoroughly lost. As I understand, it's headed to the Supreme Court now, but I don't really expect anything's going to change there. We'll see. What that suit ruled was that your school board, the elected officials here, do not have the standing to sue the state over a state law in most cases. It would have to be a private citizen, someone out in the public would have to object to it. There are a few exceptions to that revolve around money and taxation, but in those cases as well, the courts ruled against us, saying that the state is the ruler of the hierarchy, and they can. The exact phrase was they can at times infringe on local governance or oversight. The exact phrase was at times infringe. The courts did not specify at what times. I interpret that to mean at all times. If they can reach down with a VAM equation and move a teacher from one classroom to another the day before school starts, then there is no infringement that they cannot do legally. With that in mind, it makes you think what your role is as a board member. I don't think that I have any power to stop this calendar from being imposed. I think what they are trying to do by making me vote for it is to make me complicit politically in the model that Sarah's just discussed. I've said this before. I think school boards, local school boards, largely exist to absorb public anger at what should rightly be directed to the people who actually have the power, who actually create this calendar. And moreover, the second part of this that I discovered in the last couple of months by doing a lot of close research, Florida cares more about standardized test numbers than really any state in the country as a whole. And if you look at Florida's performance over the last 20 years on standardized tests, we have the worst growth of any state in the country. The NAEP shows it as an aggregate proficiency growth question, and our individual tests show it. No district in the entire state of Florida averages a full year of growth on a state test. What this tells me is that the model that chases test scores above all else destroys test scores, which is an irony you would think the folks that rule us would recognize. On top of making the teaching profession much more difficult and more painful, this test model fails on its own measures. And so, I don't really expect that the board is going to join me in voting not to impose this test calendar. But if we did, if everybody did, I think the state has the power simply to impose it itself. I mean, I think DOE clearly can do it, and that would be my response to them. I am recognizing the Department of Education, the legislature's power to impose this. I just don't want to do it for them. I want to make it clear that they're doing this over the express will of the public, as expressed by their board members. They're doing it in contravention of data, and they're doing it in a way that saps the humanity of our kids and our teachers as well. And that's why I'm going to vote against this. I don't hold staff. I mean, I'm not mad at staff about this. I mean, this is the reality of what folks have to deal with. But I think as an elected official, I'm not going to be complicit in it. And we'll see where that goes from here. So thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. Ms. Fields?
In the description, it reads that this is a Florida statute and that it is a requirement from the state of Florida and that it is due by October the 1st. That's what it states here. And I'm sure that all of us have different opinions about assessments and whether or not we need to have what we have in place. But as for now, in order for us to be in compliance, it appears to me that we need to follow the rule of law, and that is to approve this and to submit it already past the deadline. So I will be supporting this motion.
Thank you, Ms. Fields. Ms. Fortney, did you have some additional comments?
Yeah, I think we got an extension, didn't we, because of the Dorian? Thank you. I thought so. But I wanted to bring your attention to page 2 where it describes what VAM is, and I'm going to leave it at that. VAM's right there on it.
Thank you, Ms. Fortney. Mr. Townsend, did you have some additional comments?
I just want to reiterate that Mrs. Fields is correct. It's a state law. I think we are superfluous as a board in this. I think the state could do it. They should do it. They should just impose it. I don't question their ability to do it. Won't try to stop them from doing it. What they want is for us to vote for it, so they could say, "Hey, see, we're all part of it together." And that's what I'm sort of unwilling to do at this point, given what the courts have ruled. And that's where I am. this is not an act of defiance. It's an act of recognizing how symbolic this role is in this matter. There's no reason for this to come to us for a vote. It should just be imposed. And since it's coming to me for a vote, I'm voting no. And that's where I stand on it.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. Any further discussion? So the motion on the floor is approval of the uniform assessment calendar for the 2019-2020 academic year. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Nay.
Motion carries. The next item is actually, that takes us to our new policies, policy changes and updates. So before I open the floor for a public hearing, I'll ask Mr. Bridges to read those into the record, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Florida's Administrative Procedures Act sets forth the process that agencies such as school boards use to go through rulemaking and adopt policies. Mrs. Dodge was unable to be with us this evening. I believe she's in Tallahassee exercising her very special set of skills, but she asked for me to do the second reading before you have the public hearing. Your policy manual is in a constant state of motion, mostly as a result of legislative changes at the federal and state level. And so most of what you're doing tonight is responsive to changes in the law that require updates of your policy in order to ensure compliance. And what I will do is I'll just go down and list these numerically and give a very, very brief descriptor of what each one is. You have policy number 1140, suspension or dismissal of administrators, which is updated to reflect statutory requirement to report misconduct. You have 2215, program of instruction, which is updated to reflect the new requirement for computer science and technology instruction, along with updates to correctly reflect correct character development requirements. Number 3140, suspension or dismissal of instructional staff, updated to reflect statutory requirement to report misconduct. Policy 5111.03, a new policy, children and youth in foster care. And these are changes mandated by ESSA, the Every Student Succeeds Act. 5540, the schools and investigations involving students, updated to correct contact info for reporting subject abuse, abandonment, or neglect. Policy 5610, removal, out of school suspension, disciplinary placement, and expulsion of students, which is updated to clarify procedural issues and as a result of recent court cases regarding disciplinary placement. Policy 6840, audit committee, updated to more accurately address statutory requirements. Policy 8141, mandatory reporting of misconduct, updated to reflect statutory requirements. And Policy 9130, public complaints, updated to reflect statutory requirements regarding contesting and challenging instructional materials, adoptions, and in schools.
Thank you, Mr. Bridges. And we do have one additional item to vote on after we hear from the public and vote on the policy updates. So at this time, anyone from the public who would like to come forward and address the policy updates, please do so. So we're opening the floor to anyone who would like to come forward and address the policy updates that were read into the record by Mr. Bridges. Okay. So the item on the floor is approval of the policy updates that we heard at the September 17, 2019 work session and as read into the record by Mr. Bridges. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and we have some discussion. Mr. Townsend?
Quick question that I must have missed when I reviewed these before. The 5540, the schools and investigations involving students, is the specific insertion of U.S. Immigration and Customs enforcement, is that specifically from law, or is that something we're doing voluntarily?
I believe that is going to be one that was required by statute because this was an update, a compliance update.
All right. Well, so make that clear. That's a compliance addition. It's not something we're doing on our own. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. Is there any further discussion? So, Seeing none, the motion on the floor is approval of the policy updates heard at the September 17, 2019 work session and read into the record by Mr. Bridges. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And the last item is approval of the agreement between Florida West Coast Chapter of Independent Electrical Contractors and the School Board of Polk County, Florida, to conduct an electrical apprenticeship program. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Fields?
When I was reading this, I think it might have been over the weekend, I was very excited about this opportunity for our students to have another option, and I'm sure that Lakeland Electric and others would be very pleased with this opportunity for getting qualified candidates for their jobs. So this is exciting. So I would definitely be supporting this one.
Thank you, Ms. Fields. Any further discussion? So the motion on the floor is to approve the agreement between Florida West Coast Chapter of Independent Electrical Contractors and the School Board of Polk County, Florida, to conduct an electrical apprenticeship program. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And that takes us to Mr. Hill's report.
All right, there will be a brief report tonight. A work session held on Tuesday, November 12th, 2019 at 12:30 p.m. in the superintendent's large conference room, to be followed by the 5 p.m. school board meeting held in the auditorium located at 1915 South Flora Avenue, Bartow. That concludes the superintendent's report tonight. Deputy Superintendent's report tonight.
Thank you,
On
Mr.
behalf
Hill.
of the superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Mr. Bridges?
Mr. Chair, my compliments to the superintendent, the deputy, and the staff for their response to the tornadoes last weekend. The heavy lift that they did, there's much work to be done, but the heavy lift that they did immediately will give us a real leg up on that. So, Mr. Hill, my compliments.
Thank you, Mr. Bridges. Ms. Matthews, did you have a report? Thank you, Ms. Matthews. So tonight, we're going to start with Ms. Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I finish my mint. I have a very quick report. I again wanted to reach out to staff to say thank you for showing up, and Kathleen, but also that community. If you're not from North Lakeland, I live in North Lakeland. It's a very proud community that takes care of each other. And I appreciate people that came out all weekend to help and that will continue to help. I know Thursday night they will be feeding, the Kathleen Historical Society will be feeding people in the area. So if you can volunteer for that, I'm sure they're looking for help as well. And again, I want to mention the Polk Symposium on ESC. There was a lot of people that put work into this, and a lot of them were parents that took time either off of their regular jobs or away from their families to come together to put every resource you could possibly need in one location. So I need the community to show up for that, to support it. And I appreciate the work of staff that are going to be out on a Saturday, making sure parents and families know about services and know about agencies. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's my report.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Ms. Fields?
Well, I'm not going to repeat what Ms. Miller just said or Mr. Bridges, but just very thankful for the amazing work that our staff do each and every day. And it's not just the response on the weekend, but I mean each and every day. If you notice tonight, the ESC staff, all the ones that came down to get the picture, it's just amazing to me how blessed we are to have such awesome staff. And I personally can't thank them enough. And definitely thank the Superintendent Byrd, always being Johnny on the spot and doing whatever she needs to do with her team, because she can't do it by herself. But I just want to commend everyone for that. And if you have not had an opportunity to go to the Facebook page, I believe there is a link to a GoFundMe account for the teachers' needs at Kathleen Middle School. There's a list of classroom needs that they have. And if anyone is interested in supporting that, they're more than, we really would appreciate that. And I wanted to thank Ms. Usher and her team coming before us today, and all of the work that you all have before you. Lord bless you. But you are amazing to me. We're very blessed. I would say that you were a good hire, Ms. Usher, by the superintendent of schools. And we thank you and your team, because it's not just one person, and your team for the great work that you guys are doing and getting ready to do and will be doing in the upcoming years. And we want to thank our community for supporting that sales tax referendum renewal, because without that, a lot of this work would not be done. Most of it would not be done. And I wanted to make an announcement, and I hope that it's going to be in order to do that, that there will be an ESE parent meeting at Dr. Annie Roberts on Tuesday at 6:30, I believe, 6 o'clock. And we're encouraging all of the ESE parents for that school to come, and we're going to have representation from our staff, providing them with the services that we can offer and listening to their concerns and just trying to establish a better sense of communication and support for that school. So we want to make sure that that word is given to our community and to our parents. And lastly, had an opportunity to attend Harrison School for the Arts Faculty Student Showcase in September, and Ms. Cunningham was there as well as a superintendent. It was amazing to me to see all of the talent that not just the students have, but the adults have at the school. And it was a very uplifting evening, and I look forward to going back next year. And that ends my report.
Thank you, Ms. Fields. Ms. Reynolds?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is my last announcement this year about the lip sync battle, because it was last week. And so I know that several of you did not get to attend, but Mr. Hill got to attend. I last time said that Jackie was not a fair judge, and Mrs. Bird was a very fair judge this year, so I need to correct my statement. She was wonderful. Mrs. Bird's Song from Garner was one of our contestants. She placed third, and she was able to incorporate every level of her school staff. So she had a guidance counselor, she had a custodian, she had their school guardian, and she had a teacher, and they were all her backup dancers. They did Happy and Respect, and I think every one of their students respect them after seeing them perform it in the cafeteria for them. So they had a lot of fun, and the organization was able to raise $32,000 for public education in Winter Haven. And I think the biggest part that I want to highlight of that is the committee that puts this event on every year is made of 9 or 10 people. It's myself, 2 parents that have students in Winter Haven Public Schools, one parent that has a student at Harrison, and then we have 5 or 6 community members. 5 of them have students that are long out of public schools, and 1 has a toddler that will be hopefully coming into our public schools in the next few years. But it is a true community effort. It is not parents from 1 or 2 local schools. It is community members that are just doing this because they really care about the kids and the education in Winter Haven. So I think that's something that's really important to highlight. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Reynolds. Ms. Cunningham?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just have a couple items. Just wanted to do a shout out to Principal Lana Tatum at Dundee Elementary Academy. She started a new program this year called Tuck In Tuesday, Escape from Mr. Lemoncello's Library. That's a mouthful, so bear with me. It's a book, and what she does is she decided to have the whole school read the book. And every Tuesday night, she has, ahead of time, guest readers that come in and read a chapter in the book. And then every Tuesday night, the children can tune in their PJs and listen as that particular chapter is being read. I mean, what a fun way to read and to make it fun and to make it also something when you go home that you can do as a family. So I just thought that was the coolest thing. I had an opportunity to read. I don't know how well I did, but anyways, I hope the kids enjoy it when they get to chapter 50 and 51, because those were my chapters. But if anyone's interested in being a guest reader, I'm sure Ms. Tatum would love to have you on board. So I think it's a great, great idea. Additionally, I attended, along with my fellow board members, Ms. Fortney and Mr. Townsend, the Early Learning Coalition extended the board an invitation to a documentary film entitled No Small Matter. And I've always felt, I think those of you that know me and know my heart, Reading and a passion for reading to me is so important based on my own upbringing. And so this documentary really touched home because it talked about not only the early childhood education, but the super early, as in from 0 to 3 years of age. And I'll be honest with you, I never really realized, I've been on this board a while, how much and how impactful those first 3 years are in our lives and in the lives of our children. I wish we could all see it. I'm hoping we can get some time and have our see that film, because I just thought it was so moving. I could talk about it for hours, but we don't have that time. So I'm hoping we can bring it here. And I just want to thank the Early Learning Coalition and Mr. Mark Hutek for inviting all of us. And like I said, I hope we can bring it to Polk County schools. I think it would make a real difference in a lot of people's lives if we really understood that impact in the early from 0 to 3 years of age. So anyways, all I can say to parents out there is read, read, read. And I always say that every break we get, every Christmas time, during spring break, during summer, I always say get to the library and read, read, read. So it really goes back to that early learning portion, that we can all do little things to impact our children so positively. So a shout out to them, and thank you for inviting us to be a part of that. I certainly learned a lot. So I also want to say that I just attended my last Polk Education Foundation meeting. I've been the board liaison for the past year and have thoroughly enjoyed working with that board and watching. You heard just a small snippet tonight with Mr. Jerry Miller and all that he does for our county. But Susan is an amazing human being and runs such a tight ship and does so many wonderful things for kids out there when it comes to being able to help children and families with all the different programs. And I've been blessed to be a part of that as your liaison. And I just want to say thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to rotate into that liaisonship this year, and look forward to continuing to keep those relationships. They're a wonderful group of people that work tirelessly on behalf of children. So, and that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. Ms. Fortney, and by the way, I couldn't agree more. These are wonderful comments.
Amazing.
Ms. Fortney?
I encourage everybody to watch the work session today, and if you need further proof that our teachers and staff are struggling, I read a letter out that I received from a teacher about losing the joy of teaching, and which is why I voted against that calendar. But I did want to announce that we're having an education summit for public schools over in Winter Haven, November 21st, from 6 to 8. Everyone is invited. I will be there for sure. It's at the Winter Haven Rec Northeast Center over on Dr. MLK, down from Jewett Middle Magnet. I'll get it right in a minute. Just a couple shout outs. Bartow Chamber did a diversity lunch that was like outrageously good. It was like, well, not the food. Well, I mean, the food was fine. But, anyways, they did one and it was really nice. Bloodhound Bash. Oh my gosh, to see those kids that I taught at Stanball, shout out to them from 8th grade to in the homecoming court. I thought I was going to cry on the side of the road. Well, actually I did. All right, the Winter Haven had a homecoming parade that was awesome too. I'm sorry I held that parade up so much. People running all over the place. I have a shout out for City of Bartow. Trish Pfeiffer did chalk art. If you have not seen chalk art, those folks, it is so wonderful. It must have been Arts Weekend, because then I got to do Nancy at the Polk Museum of Art. And those little kids were so thrilled to get their artwork hung in a real museum that's, Smithsonian associated. Then, it turned a little bit, the Polk delegation was up at Polk State. I addressed them with my concerns about keeping staff, not just teachers, all staff, that when that experience walks out the door, we can never get it back. And it costs us money. And I urge them to do things that would help us to keep our staff. I still say customer service is free. And, you know, we can retain quite a few folks that way. Then I drove all the way to Sebring to see the DOE show with the standards. You know, the review of the standards. And my thing to them was, us as classroom teachers and our staff, but it feels like it's a moving target all the time. We couldn't even adopt textbooks because of it. And I wanted to let them know that I did not appreciate that. Teacher to teacher, talking about Polk Education Foundation. Wow, the teacher to teacher event there at the Church on Lake Mirror was wonderful. I do want to give a shout out to my high school, George Jenkins High School. They had hundreds of families come in and do their financial paperwork together with their guidance department. That's why guidance counselors rock. They are so important. Speaking of colleges, Monique and LaCuria did the Florida Southern College thing. That was outstanding as well. And then I got to visit Miss Kay Fields' Girls Inc. in Bartow, and I got to teach science for about an hour. That was awesome. Thank you, Miss Fields. I think they liked me. They wanted me to come back. Yeah. But anyways, speaking of Hispanic celebration, Bartow High School put on a really nice one. I posted that on Facebook. Those kids were so proud of their projects. Unbelievably good. We had our AXO kickoff, and that's doing from the Lake Wells NAACP. We need mentors. We need sponsors. Please contact me if you're interested, but mainly we need kids to do it. And I'm already in touch with, again, George Jenkins High School. They have a bunch of kids very interested. I like to get some of the other high schools involved. Yes, Polk Theater, no small matter, was unbelievable. But I'm a brain kind of person and how the brain develops, so I love all that. That was really great. Then we had SEU Emerge Symposium. Superintendent Bird was at all these places. She's not here to back me up tonight, dang it. But it was really interesting. It was like teacher to teacher again, you know, teaching other teachers instead of going outside of our own system. It was our people showing off what they do and what works in their classrooms. And I think that should do it for, I don't know, a week or two. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fortney. Mr. Townsend?
There's a whole bunch of things. I guess I learned what it's like to go last now or next to last. Sorry. You know, one of the things to note about the No Small Matter, about the Early Learning Coalition video, was its emphasis on the importance of children playing and how learning is anything you do. You know, when you're interacting with an adult, it was a very heavily focused on the importance of human interaction above all things, and you know, I think it would be very, very, very useful for lots of folks to see. I want to also Deputy Superintendent Hill gave a very good update, sort of factually, on where things stand with Kathleen Middle this morning. I don't. Have we released the equivalent of that to the public yet? Have we said, like, I mean, like, most likely school's going to start back a week from yesterday, and teachers, I mean, we should probably have. Did it? Okay. Yeah, I actually flew out of town the night all of that happened. Was out of town for a few days. It's pretty amazing how fast people responded, and I was looking at the pictures of that thing and going, good Lord, how long is it be open? And it ended up being like less than 48 hours. So that's really impressive. So you have my thanks for that. I'm looking forward to getting out there tomorrow and and taking a look at it. I noticed something. There was a story in Tampa Bay Times today or yesterday about what are called RPOs, risk protection orders. It's when someone acts in a threatening way or behaves in such a way in the aftermath of the Stoneman Douglas shooting. One of the I think one of the few good aspects of the law that was passed was granting that authority. And I want to acknowledge Sheriff Judd. He has, according to the Tampa Bay Times, and there was a big quote from the sheriff as well about it. He's seized more guns from people than any locality has based on threats. That's something that's not terribly easy politically for him. Like he's a staunch gun rights person, and I respect that. I also respect his willingness to act in a way that is almost certainly that law is probably the thing that has the most tangible safety benefit outside of mental health stuff. More than any of the fencing we're doing, more than any of the bells and whistles, the hardening of the targets, getting guns away from people who are disturbed or who are in a bad mental state and is incredibly important because there are a lot of guns out there. And I just want to give the sheriff a lot of credit for that. It's again not it's impressive. There's a couple of people in the audience who are going to speak tonight, I think, about we had a brief discussion about IRIS this morning, which is our new internal board communication system. And there are a couple of IRIS requests from me in the audience tonight that I couldn't access IRIS this morning because of some sort of technical issue, and I was gone for a few days, so I don't actually have one of these issues we spoke about at length today at in the work session. Another of these relates to AR, and I'm not sure what the answer is to yet, but I'm looking forward. I bet there is one, so I'm looking forward to hearing it. But it just goes to illustrate that, sort of as we talked this morning, there needs to be IRIS is a good way to create requests for information, but we need to take it to the next level and have it be a little more interactive and fast. And I look forward to making that happen. And just to Sarah's point about what our folks out there deal with. I think one of these issues we're going to hear about is a really serious health problem for a child, for one of our staff. And imagine all the other stresses that go into being a teacher or a para or bus driver, whatever, and having life and death matters with your child on top of that. I think we need to be thinking as an organization how, wherever we can find things that relieve stress, to act on them, and look forward to having to sort of moving forward on the discussion we started to have about sick time and the sick bank this morning at the agenda study. And with that, I'll be done. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. Ms. Fortney, did you have some additional comments?
I need a correction. The Emerge Symposium was held at Southeastern University. It was put on by our teacher engagement department, and it was designed by teachers for teachers. So I just want to make sure they were our host, but our people did it, and I want to make sure I gave them those shout-outs because our teacher engagement is really trying, and those folks came after teaching all day, both in the audience and the presenters. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fortney. And I also would like to commend the superintendent and her staff for the response to Kathleen Middle School and that, the tornado. And in addition to that, the community, everyone pulled together so remarkably well. And it's just, You know, it's a remarkable thing to see, and it makes me feel very proud of our district and our community pulling together for our teachers and our students. I had the great honor of serving as Grand Marshal for the Lake Region Homecoming Parade. I was very well received and very well loved until I ran out of candy. So the moral of that story is take plenty of candy. And with that, we'll open the floor to public comments. Again, as I always do, I ask that we welcome your comments. We welcome your concerns. We encourage you to share your thoughts with us as a school district. Respectfully request you stay focused on issues and not on individuals, and if it's necessary to issue derogatory comments, please direct those towards me. And with that, we do have some folks who submitted cards, so I'll call them first. And our first individual is Patrick Zaire. Zier, thank you.
My name is Patrick Zier. I'm a volunteer in the Polk County school system. Have been for it's my 15th year. I don't want to go into a lot of detail here, not necessarily how I got involved, but I had a daughter that taught 4th grade at Highland City Elementary, and I thought maybe I could help kids out with their reading. So we worked it out, and I went to her school and worked with kids in a reading period. I'd take them to the library, let them read aloud to me, and then they take a test, and if they get a proper grade, they passed it. She left the system for a while for a much more lucrative job, and then Chris Roberts, who had been in the administration there, went to Bartow Middle, and he kept trying to hire her, and she finally went back there. So when she went to Bartow Middle, I wanted to work with her again, and she's teaching 6th grade down there, so I ended up working there. So I'm now volunteering at both Highland City and Bartow Middle. And like I said, what I do is I work with kids who need help with their reading. Lee Strain at Highland City and my daughter at Bartow Middle identify kids that are below grade level readers, and I will take them, as I said, to the library and read with them. And we use a program called AR, Accelerated Reading. All the children in the schools are involved in this. They all do the same thing, except they do it a lot by themselves. They read the book, they take the test. If they get a certain grade, they pass it. And they get what are called AR points for this, and every child has a goal that they aim to reach. And they can be rewarded for it. All the schools don't, and all the teachers don't, but some of them do. Now, this has been a really effective program. I'm doing this, like I said, in my 15th year of doing this. And I've seen a lot of good come out of this. When I first started this, I thought there might be a stigma attached to the children who went with me because they were below grade level. Exactly the opposite. When I bring these children back to the classroom, and after they've taken this test, if they passed it, invariably they will stand by the teacher until the teacher recognizes them and praises them. And all the kids in the classroom see that. And I think all kids like individual attention. So now, most of the kids, they want to go with me. Even kids that are good readers want to go. And I think that's the reason. Well, like I said, it's a very good program until this year. This year, for whatever reasons, the administration, in dealing with this program, decided that 60 was too low of a passing grade. Children have to get 80 now to pass. Now, the only thing I can think happened here is that the people who did this were thinking about children that are at or above grade level and probably thought 60 is too low, these kids should do better. And I would agree with that. But
Continue. Finish your sentence. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Finish up.
what you forgot there is you forgot about the people that we're dealing with. With these kids, 80 is not a passing grade. It's a goal grade. When we get these kids to 80, we push them up. And they're going to get 60s and 70s again. And if you make 60 and 70 a failing grade, you're destroying every initiative that they have, any reason they have, keep doing it. And I'll give you one example. I have a little girl and I'm working with in 4th grade. She has some learning difficulties. I love that little girl. She's a real sweetheart. And I told me, I said, I'm working it every week. And first time I took her, she was telling about how she didn't do well in school and she failed these things. And you can't have them going into this with a negative attitude. They gotta be positive. If they think they're gonna fail, they're gonna fail. So I'm trying to light it up for her, and I told her, I said, look, I said, if you promise not to bite me, I'll take you every week. And that, eased the tension. Well, I've taken her 3 times. She's got 80 on one test, 100 on another, and 100 on another, which is amazing. The point here, though, is she is not gonna keep getting those scores. She is not a good reader. She's gonna get 60s and 70s, and if you keep this policy in place, you're gonna crush her.
Thank you.
I'm not gonna let that happen.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Zier.
Whatever I have to do to make sure this is changed, I think the superintendent ought to look at this, send a memo maybe out to the teachers saying you're gonna change it, and, make it, this program is very valuable.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Thank you, Mr. Zier. Thank you for your volunteerism and for coming and advocating for that. I think we have a couple board members who have some comments they'd like to share with you, if you don't mind. Mr. Townsend?
Well, I just, Mr. Zier contacted me about this, and I put it in to Iris as a request, and haven't seen what the answer is. So is there an answer? Like, I wasn't sure if this is a thing that the program has done arbitrarily, or that we did. What's the reasoning behind this?
Dr. Akes, go forward, please. Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon. Mr. Townsend, I did respond in Iris, and you got a response in there. It's waiting for you.
I couldn't get into it today.
Okay. Yeah, one of the things that we've done this year, there's a couple of different passing scores on that, but to try to really raise the fidelity of implementation of that program. So we've done that across the district. We had teachers, had principals involved with it. And we know with comprehension that we need to get that up to the 70 or 80% pass rate. And that was a recommendation, not by just the administration, but also by teachers, parents, and the company itself. Really believing that the importance of this program and comprehension is there. So there's a couple of different tests you could take in there. One passing score, one area you could pass with a 70, and one area you could pass with an 80%. It just depends on the number of questions that was in there. And so there was a lot of thought put into that. Again, making sure that we have high expectations for comprehension across the board.
Ms. Cunningham, you had a comment?
Yes, I want to thank you, sir, for speaking tonight. I've had several teachers contact me as well. It's on, you know how we're supposed to have a list of things that we want to talk about at work sessions?
Yes.
That's going to be one of my things on my list, because I've had more than one teacher reach out and say, I have some kids that have worked so hard, they finally get to the original threshold, and then boom, it's been changed to where those kids just say, forget it, I'm not even trying anymore because I can't. So this really is an issue in our schools. And I feel like we at least need to talk about it. I understand that we're trying to raise the level
Yes, ma'am.
of reading comprehension. I get that. But I think the way in which we did it, had we done it in more of a little bit at a time rather than taking the leap, right? We took quite a leap this year, am I right?
No, ma'am, not a large one. I mean, some schools had it maybe at 60, but I would have to go look at it. But
Yeah.
it was set school by school and sometimes teacher by teacher, so.
Our school went from 60 to 80.
Yours did?
Yeah, one
Okay.
of them. So, and the poor teachers that are working with the kids are like, are you kidding me? If you'd have said 65, okay, to incrementally is, I guess what I'm saying.
Yes, ma'am,
I don't know
okay.
how we, so I think it's, I'm simply agreeing with the gentleman and saying it is definitely something I think we need to look at as a board and discuss. Not
Absolutely.
to tell you what your job is, because you know it better than we do, but I'm hearing that a lot over the last maybe month or so. And then we don't want kids to give up. That's the whole point, is to continue to enable them to read. So, very
Mr.
difficult.
Mr. Hill?
Yeah, we, along with Dr. Akes, we have, our regional assistant superintendents of elementary school that could probably weigh in if you'd like to set that maybe for a
work session.
Yeah,
work session.
I think that would be my preference, because I think it's a considerably long conversation. And I think we ought to move it to a work session, if that's okay with the board members.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Dr.
And,
Riggs.
and it's, Mr. Zaire, you brought that to us, thank you for that, and,
Yes.
and we're gonna have a conversation about it as a district.
Okay, I hope we can do something with it.
Thank you.
We will.
Zaire. Okay.
I mean, isn't AR supposed to be a reading encouragement thing? Like, it's not inherently an assessment, right? It's not really an
I hope not. That was gonna
assessment
be
tool.
mine.
It's a read more tool. And
Yes.
so, I mean, that's certainly how it was perceived when my kids were doing it. I think, I think what Mr. Zier was experiencing is that a kid would read, be proud of reading a book, then take the thing, and then be told, hey, you failed. Like, so I don't know if there's some way to program the outcome. Like I'm fine with the teachers knowing what the kid gets on it, but do we have to tell the kid, sorry, you failed? I mean, is there some other way to have the screen come up? I mean, like it's
Or have their level of reading equate to the AR points they get. So if they're a level 1 and they get a 60, I don't know.
right. Yeah, I mean, I don't
We had levels when I did
don't
it.
know about the guts of the program, but it's not an assessment, or at least that's always been my understanding of it. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ms. Fortney, you had your light was on as
No,
well.
I give up.
Ms. Miller?
I think the work session would be a great place for this because I taught 5th grade and kids would grab Harry Potter because it was worth the most points and they had no intention of reading that book or failing. It's implementation of AR, and you have kids in a classroom that can be multiple grade levels behind. So I think it's the implementation, but I'm glad we're going to have a work session. It's going to be a longer discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Miller. Ricky Shira. And did I pronounce that correctly?
Yes,
That's-
yes, you did.
That's the first one, I think, in the last,
You're getting
the
really
past
good
2
at this.
meetings. I'm getting better.
You're getting good.
And of course, I know, because we,
First off, Board, I want to thank you very much for letting me come up here to speak. Ladies and gentlemen, y'all are super, especially this weekend, seeing Mr. Hill on Bay News 9 with Jacqueline Bird and everybody coming together in the Kathleen area, because that's my home. I love that area. But the reason I'm here today is a grandfather and a father, and my youngest daughter called me and said, Dad, I need some help. I'm here to talk to y'all about a little girl named. She was diagnosed this past Friday with neoblastoma, stage 4 cancer, and she's only 3 years old. And she is one of your teacher's daughters. And there's several teachers in the Polk County school system wanting to give her their PTO, and they're being told no. And we need to do anything and everything we can. You know, as a parent, you'd go to the end of the earth to save one of your children, especially a little girl like her. I mean, she loves unicorns, she loves anything pink, and it just breaks my heart. Trust me, I mean, that's not the only thing, because I called some friends of mine and immediately we set up a rib sale that we're going to have November 9th at the Kathleen Lions Club, so I want to plug that. We're selling ribs for $25 a slab, and you can pre-order. We've set up, the family set up a GoFundMe page, but this is the unthinkable. And I would like the board to reconsider or maybe make an exception for she's a I don't know exactly how you can do that, but whatever help we can give this family, we need to help them. Need your help. She's 3 years old and had the unthinkable. My daughter and her was at Shands this afternoon, and they would probably be here now, but they were just getting into town when I was coming down here. So they're making, because they've got to start treatment this week. So if there's any way that you can make an exception so these teachers can give them the PTO, I would certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much for listening to me, and trust me, we need to help this family. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Mr. Shira. We did discuss that at length in today's work session. Mr. Townsend?
Well, I think the immediate thing that needs to be done is that they need to contact Ms. Porteous's office, our HR director. There is a sick bank that where you can want to see what the immediate options are. Currently, the policy does not allow it. It's like you said. It has to be immediate family. There were several of us who were interested in perhaps revisiting that. There are some districts that do it. Not a lot of apparently large districts do it. But there were a number of us who were interested in looking at this. That's Ms. Porteous back there. Like the best short-term thing that could be done would be to talk to her to see what immediate options there are, and then the board has to think through the rest of this, and if we're going to change the policy, make a change to it.
Well, thank you. One other thing, I know that there's a lot of prayer warriors up there, and we're asking for prayers for the Hearth family, and I believe in the power of prayer. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Mr. Shira. Is there anyone else who would like to come forward and offer comments at this time?
Good evening, Larry Milhorn, President of ASME Local 2227. We had a tragic thing happen to one of our employees. I'm not going to go in detail or nothing about that. But when this happened, it brought something to the forefront. I think the district needs to make sure every employee in this district updates their personal information, their contacts, their beneficiaries, because when something happens, this ain't a good time to find out you don't have a beneficiary. It's really hard. This thing that happened should never happen, but this district can help our employees in another way on account of this. So I beg you to have every department head make sure that they have their employees update their personal information, get all their beneficiaries on their insurances, whatever. Even if they have to put 1 or 2 people on them things, make sure we have this. It makes things so hard when it's not done. And I always thought that we updated them all the time, but we don't. We don't require that to be done. And I think that's something that needs to be done. We're going to take care of this employee, and we're going to fight to do that. But I want to make sure it don't ever happen again. I want to make sure that we get every employee information updated and their beneficiaries on the insurance policies taken care of. And I think the district can do that. I don't think it's a monumental thing. I don't think it's something that's going to cost money for the district to do. I think it's just having the department heads go to their people and say, we need this done and we need it done now. I mean, tomorrow's too late. And we found that out the hard way. And I'm telling you that there's a lot of people in this district that I know does not have this done. My shop clerk took it upon herself after this happened to get everybody in my shop to update their information. So I would beg you to make sure, Mr. Hill, that you get all the department heads and try to do something to get this information updated. I don't want to ever see this happen again. It's not a good thing. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Milhorn. Anyone else like to? Ms. Miller, you had.
Yeah, I had a question for Mr. Milhorn before he walks off. I apologize. First I want to say thank you for taking care of somebody who you may be the only family they had. But I also wanted you to share with us, there is a benefit for this person. Can you just share with us what that is or when it is so we can plan to be there?
Yes. On November 2nd, I think Ms.
I
Fortney
can
has
do
the
it.
thing. She can read the stuff off, but they're gonna have a thing for her on November 2nd. And we do have an account set up in Mid-Florida to try to help raise money for this person. Thank you.
And I think,
5 to
Mr.
7,
Bridges.
November 2nd. I have the details if anybody's interested.
Thank you. Bishop,
I'm ready to go too.
Bishop Mincy?
But Bishop Mincy, I just want to say thank you to Mr. Wilson and the board members that I had opportunity to share with last week and and this week concerning things that would bring our district together with our superintendent and all of you that serve on the board, because it is a very important that we see what we can do as being united. I believe what the old saying says, together we stand and divided we fall, and I think that in this district it's necessary that we see the importance of working together for all of our children because they are very important to us. Next thing I want to say is that I also reached out to our governor. He has a thought in his mind of raising teachers' salaries, which is a good thing, but I think he needs to know that all of these people that work in all of these schools, from the least to the greatest, need to be considered. Because regardless of how anybody feel, if the custodian don't clean the room, what teacher want to go in a dirty classroom? The lunchroom person ain't there to serve, who will eat? If the yard maintenance ain't taken care of, who want to go by a school that looks trashed? So everybody is important, and I think it ought to be an encouragement to all of us to kind of say something about that, to send him an email. I sent him one. I'm waiting. I told his person that schedules, tell him if he come to this area, I'll meet him anywhere. I think that we need to kind of push that even to our legislators. Just kind of, if you run into them, have conversation with them because they need to know what is important. We sit and just twiddle our thumbs and don't say nothing, nothing will be done. They say this the squeaky wheel that gets the oil, so we got to put some oil on this thing and make it work. And I think that that's a very necessary thing. And if we remember, as I said to Mr. Wilson on yesterday, I believe it was, communication is important. We need to know how to communicate with each other and communicate with these people that are in authority so they will know we are not just going to be pushed away or blown away, but we are here and we are concerned about everybody, our children and each other, and that is very important. So we thank you tonight.
Thank you, Bishop Mincy. Ms. Fortney?
I just want to thank Bishop Mincy. He is everywhere I am, and I appreciate his input and his fighting for our kids and our staff. He fights up for them for every single level, and I thank you. Thank you, thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to come forward and offer comments?
Stephanie Yoakum, president of the Polk Education Association. Piggybacking on what Bishop Mincy was saying, each one of you guys, and I was able to talk to most of you guys today before the work session, we are co-hosting with a lot of different community organizations with the NAACP of Lakeland and Lake Wales, the Polk Community PTSA, Fund Education Now is a statewide parent group, the Democratic Public Education Caucus, and AFSCME Local 2227. We are co-hosting an education summit to where we can bring all of our Polk County voices together and talk about issues that face our public schools. I hope that you and everybody out here and everybody listening can come. It is in Winter Haven at the Recreation and Cultural Center from 6 to 8 on Thursday, November 21st. It is important that it's not just us in education talking about the issues. We need our parents, we need our communities, we need our business people, we need everybody talking the same message. And this is what this is going to start, hopefully, in Polk County. So I hope that you all can make it. If you have any questions, I had left my contact information in the invitation. Please reach out. And I hope to see you all there.
Thank you, Ms. Yocum. Is there anyone else who would like to come forward and offer comments at this time? Are there any other comments from the board members? If none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.